All right, we're here. We're back. Jeff said we had a lot of interesting conversations on the chat yesterday and from class. So said, what do you think about streaming? And I'm like, all right, I got an hour. Because shortly after 4, I'm gonna go hit some golf balls. So I only have about an hour. And that's good enough, man. Hey Jeff, so anyway, about class, it's an interesting class. It really was for me an attempt to, but today I'll say actually what I think about this issue. I didn't want to say it in my class, but about these students having their visas revoked, and what I think about that, and what makes sense, and how I think about it, not how I think anybody else should think about it, or how I think my students should think about it. Everyone's just kind of going about it in their own way, but I have my own thoughts on it. And but maybe we'll get to some of the questions or the comments and maybe there'll be enough space there for me to put my own thoughts in. So Jeff, maybe if you want, we can start with a couple things. Revoked. That's a cool title, by the way. That's
a great title.
It's one of my top titles. Our top titles. Yeah.
So these were questions from class yesterday that were asked on the live stream that we did not get to.
Uh-huh. All right.
So the first one was from Mike from the state capital of Pennsylvania, Harrisburg. And he asked,
how do diversion programs ensure accountability and is accessed effectively social status? Oh man, that's such a good question. You can't ensure accountability. It's just not possible. I mean, you can do your best, but to have 100% accountability, you probably, in most cases, you probably need to spend money. I mean, you could just do drug testing and that's accountability, right? There are all sorts of things, but you can't ensure it. You do the best you can. And I think the one thing that, we had a conversation with Irvin a year or so ago here in office hours. And I think Irvin and I got to this place where, just like, look, the point in an ideal world, in the best of all worlds, you wouldn't have prisons. You wouldn't have prisons because you would socialize people in a way that they never would do anything the kinds of things that would land them in prison or have to be sort of taken away from the rest of society. Like you start there, right? That's your goal. The goal is for people to just act in a way that is civil and responsible and act for the good of themselves and the good of the whole at the same time. That's the goal of any social system in any society, right? That's what makes a good society. So I can walk out of my house. I don't have to worry about people. I don't have to lock my doors. I don't have to worry about people stealing my things or beating me up or whatever it is. Like, that's the good society. And then you think, okay, but we're going to have some prisons. So we want to sort of develop a society in which we need the fewest possible prisons and the fewest possible laws, right? I mean, we don't want to go overboard. So we want to try to do that. Can we do that? And what does that mean? It doesn't mean like take this liberal approach and let people just walk all over other people, but you start with the idea that how do we get people to have as much freedom as possible and not infringe on other people's freedoms, okay? So then I think about prisons, like, well, we don't want people in prison. And if they're in prison, we want them there for the shortest possible amount of time because it costs a lot of money. It's very expensive to house people away. And so that doesn't mean you just let them out, but it means we try to do the best. Can we spend the money rehabilitating people or getting people to do the socialization work on people that didn't happen, obviously, in their childhoods or their adulthoods or whenever it is that should have happened? Can we do that while people are in prison so we can let them out and we don't have to pay for them? And B, they won't go back. Like, this is how you really want to be thinking, because you want the cost to be as low as possible. It's really expensive to be doing this stuff. It doesn't mean we look away. It doesn't mean that we let people commit crimes. None of that. But you start with the sociology of, hey, is there anything that we can do that would reduce the amount of money that we spend on the criminal justice system? And so anyway, when I think about diversion programs, it's like, well, what you want is, people have committed some infraction, and they're small enough infractions. These aren't major crimes that you say, like, okay, so you got caught shoplifting. It's your first time, right? Has anyone? Can we talk about this? Like, you're shoplifted. Like, well, what are you doing? Like, what's going on in your life that you're shoplifting? Like, do we want to spend some of the? Do we have time for that? Even that's the first question. Do we have time to sit down with people and be like, can we just talk this through? Right? Why are you shoplifting? Well, that costs money. That costs time. And so then we developed this diversion program where it's like, well, we don't have a lot of time, but we're going to give you a probation officer, and you're going to meet with this person and a couple times or 3 times, and we're going to see if just the fear of it going to jail for a longer period of time, maybe that'll work and you won't shoplift anymore. But we can't guarantee that you won't, and they do cost money. It costs resources. So, but we can definitely make you pay a fine. We can make you pay court costs and pay a fine and this and that. So I don't know, in this particular case, I don't know. That's how I think about diversion programs. It's like, you gotta, it's what I'm always trying to do here in Social 19, whether it's in the class or in the, or in office hours, is like, zoom out and let's look at what the sociology of all this stuff is. And don't even ask the questions like, will it work? Will it not work? It's like, no, understand it first and then decide what is it that we need to do. So, and how should we organize these things and spend money and that kind of stuff. And yes, if you have, the more money you have, the more likely you are to be able to get sent to a program like this and not have to go to jail or whatever the case is. But for the most part, these kinds of programs they're not for people who've committed violent crimes or anything. So none of these 22 students at Penn State did anything that was remotely violent or even probably a felony. Yeah. They probably didn't get in a car accident when they got pulled over being drunk, and they probably weren't way over the speed limit or over the limit. Right. Because that would have probably taken them to another place, and then we would have dealt with them differently. So then it becomes like, okay, you did something that's relatively small, although, so what's that mean? What should we do? What do we want to do? What's the best for all of us? So anyway.
I did also want to state that these students are here on visas, and it is a different story when somebody is here illegally. Like, they came with coyotes or whatever and jumped over the border, and now they're here, and then they get caught with something. I did want to show a clip. I've talked about him before, but it's Judge Fleischer from Houston, Texas. I saw this clip a while ago, and we'll be fine sharing it real quick here. I'm just going to share my screen with audio. But the title is, he warns an illegal immigrant who was caught with a DWI. And I think it's pretty valuable for people to hear. Like, this is a judge who works within the criminal justice system, and this is a guy who gives people second and even sometimes third opportunities to correct themselves.
But he's pretty hardcore, this guy, though, right? When he finally brings the hammer down, he brings it down.
Yes. One of the things that he says a lot is, so for instance, he might give a PR bond, which means that the person doesn't have to pay. He's kind of saying, you can go as long as you follow these restrictions or these rules. So for instance, he drug tests people a lot. He's like, I'm going to go send you for a drug test now, and then come back, and then we'll talk about it. And then they come back, and he's like, so you tested positive for THC? I'm testing you in 5 weeks. If you fail in that 5 weeks, then I'm going to make your bond so high your eyes are going to explode. That's like one of the things he always says. So
Yeah, yeah.
he's kind of extreme with when he is done giving people multiple chances, but he really does try and give people chances. But this is what happens. This is an interaction he had with somebody who was pulled over. They were under the influence. They had a DWI and they're an illegal.
What happens if you go to jail?
I can get immigration.
What?
I can get immigration, pick me up.
You will sit in custody because immigration will put a detainer on you. Your butt will be in jail for the next 6 to 9 months, waiting for immigration to deport you. That's what happens if you go to jail. Any more than 4 hours, they sweep the jail. Every 6 to 12 hours, they sweep the jail looking for people who are in there that are undocumented. And when they find them, they put a detainer on them. And you get stuck in custody until this case is over with. And then once this case is over with, you get shipped to immigration. And then, do you think anything fast happens in immigration? It takes about 9 months just to resolve a hearing in immigration court. And you sit in jail that entire time. You best be on your best behavior. Otherwise, I'm going to light you up. You understand?
Watch how.
So yeah, it's just a very interesting clip, I thought.
Yeah, and we don't know if that works for that guy, but a lot of people, they need one. We make mistakes. We need one, and then we kind of pull things together. Like, I'm not a big one to just keep giving people lots and lots and lots of chances, and I don't do that with students. And I don't expect it for myself. But it's just, there's a cost, right? All of these things. So anyway, if an American went to another country, we can expect the same treatment because most people are going to get similar treatment. So I know from personal experience, like countries all over the world where Americans get similar treatment, and it's just not. We're not getting walked on here. Other countries in the world are very similar to ours. So for example, people committing crimes and getting their visas revoked. It's common for if you commit violent crimes, you're going to get your visa revoked. Well, that's common all over the world. But there are all sorts of smaller crimes for which you absolutely do not get your visa revoked. Switzerland, one thing I didn't talk about in class, 8 years ago, the Swiss had a referendum, because the Swiss have lots and lots of referendums, in which they it was clear that for a long series of violent crimes, if you're on a visa in Switzerland, even if you have refugee status or whatever the case is, you're going to get kicked out. That's just kind of how it is. But they put this referendum up to say, hey, what if you get 2 small infractions, like 2 traffic tickets, within a 10-year period? So there was this anti-immigration political party in Switzerland that proposed this to the people, and it got voted down by the Swiss populace, but it was fairly close. So the other side is, we're not the only ones out there that have that are imposing these really strict standards. The Swiss, man, that's like 2 traffic tickets in a period of 10 years. And in my mind, I was thinking, the Swiss will vote that thing down like 80-20, right? But they didn't. Right before the vote, it was very, very close. It was like 55-45 or something. So anyway, but the point being, for those people who are Americans, don't think that other people don't treat us in a very similar way. People are pretty lax. Also, we're not special in the way that we deal with immigrants. I think that's really, really important. Jeff, what else do we have? Another question.
Another question we have. This is from Apache, who is watching us from Ukraine.
To a country in distress or someone being deported is okay. What are the immigration regulations for deportation to a country in distress or someone being deported is of refugee status? Well, here, the United States, normally speaking, we would not send people back to a country in which they, stand they have a reasonable fear for their lives, right? I mean, this is the whole point. This is, I mean, when this just a young man from El Salvador. Normally we wouldn't do that, but right now that kind of stuff is breaking down a little bit. We're sending Afghans back home. We're sending any number of people back to countries in which they have fled for various reasons. The young man from Afghanistan. So I read an AP article on this that the reporter did a really, really good job, and I did some research on the reporter to see how well were they biased to the left or biased to the right. So it's this young man who's the ruckus is about from El Salvador, who got sent back. Got sent back wrongly by the Trump administration, by ICE. And this is the guy who the senator just visited yesterday, right? So what happened was when he was young, so this is, going back 20 to 25 years, the drugs, the gangs coming down from Mexico and coming up from Colombia really took over Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. And it was like just brutal, man. So back in around the late 90s and 2000s, like El Salvador was just a very dangerous place to visit, in San Salvador, at least in the big cities. And gangs were just really taking over so many places, man, and demanding bribes. And so his family had this little restaurant, this shop. And the gangs were demanding bribes, and then they also demanded that he join the gang. And he didn't want to join the gang, and so in the end, he left. They left the neighborhood. They closed down their shop. They moved to a different neighborhood, but he was still being threatened, and so he fled to the United States. And so many people did. So many people did, man, because of this kind of violence, right? And you say, like, okay, well, are we responsible then for the fact that there's gangs in El Salvador and these gangs are threatening people, and then people flee to the border and illegally cross the border and come to the United States? Are we responsible for that? No, but also yes. If you study the history of the United States interventions in El Salvador, if you study that, and study the role of the United States in Latin America, but in Central America and in El Salvador in particular, actually, we do play a role in that. So just do a modicum of research, and you will be very surprised at the role of the United States in creating these very unstable regimes, military regimes, that in the end help to create a vast network of unequal relations. Anyway, so he gets to the United States. And he's living in the U.S., right? And there's some other family members here, because everybody has family members somewhere. And in the end, he doesn't get in any trouble in the U.S., but someone reports him as a member of I think the M13 gang. And but the United States, the immigration, they really investigated him. And said, like, no, he wasn't involved in gangs. So back in El Salvador, back in everywhere, they invested, like, no, he's not. Like, okay, so they had detained him, but then they let him go. And he was now in the system, to get a green card. Because for whatever reason, the United States, we have this over periods of time that people can apply, even if they came illegally. There are these windows that open up. And so then he applied to get residency. Okay, so he's in the system. Someone reported him again as saying, like, hey, this guy, but somebody from like New York City, he was living down in Maryland, and they got a report from someone in New York City. So they have no idea who, but they investigated him again and said, no, he wasn't involved. But because someone reported him, now he's in the system as having been reported. But after investigation, they say he's not involved, and no one who knew him, they could find any trace that in any way he was active in any of these gangs. And so they released him, said, no, it's okay, just continue. Well, then he gets married to a U.S. citizen, and, but then ICE picked him up because he was tagged. So they picked him up and they sent him down to El Salvador. So when they say that he's wrongly picked up, U.S. Immigration and Customs investigated him 2 times to say, like, yeah, he's not. They concluded that he wasn't involved in any gang activity in El Salvador. So, well, like, okay, at what point, who do you believe? You know what I mean? Who do you believe? So that's the issue here. And then you think, wow, like, what's the point, man? What's the point? What's the point that the president of El Salvador is making to say, when the courts here in the United States say, hey, listen, you detained this guy, you sent him down there illegally, we really need to bring him home. What's the point of that? Like, what are we saying, really? And then you think, is this what we, the courts are, the laws are the glue that holds the nation together, really. So is that it? You want to just decide, hey, we're not going to follow through with this? And what point is Trump making? Why is he holding on to this to say, like, yeah, we're not going to bring this guy home, even though Immigration and Customs has already said, yeah, he wasn't involved. We already investigated this guy. He hasn't been involved in any gang activity. Like, so what point are you making here? That's what you have to ask yourself. We have to ask ourselves, like, what are you doing? Why do you need to do this? So anyway, that's my take on it. History of country has people make. Yeah, listen, can you put Ed Rubin's comment up there? Listen, people make individual choices to form gangs, right? But do you know, when you live in an area where people have formed gangs, that it's really can be very difficult to not be part of the gang? Are you following what's happening with the cartels in Mexico and with other gangs? It's like, it's really difficult. You can't go out of your house. You can't, you get kidnapped, you get taken away, the gangs are going to take you. And so it's not just like that you can stay away. The only thing you can stay out of them, like, you have to leave. So it's actually pretty complex, man. It's something. There's no gangs in my neighborhood. We had a gang, actually. We saw some gang activity the other day, Lori and I. There were like 6 kids on their bicycles between the ages of probably 4 and 7, hanging out on the corner down the street from our house on their bikes, in this little college town. That was the closest we got to a gang. So, okay, well, Ed Rubin, I grew up with terrorism active in Peru. Okay, I got it. But you understand, there's the terrorism, and then there are these urban gangs. And so it's not an excuse, but it's like, look, these things are incredibly complex. At what point do we admit the rule of law is over? Trump won't. Well, this is the problem is the rule of law is breaking down. And when the administration of the United States is not following the courts. And this is, by the way, whatever you think about what the laws are, when we don't follow the laws, it's really dangerous. Like, it's really, really dangerous times, man. So, yeah, my take on this, my take in this case with this man in El Salvador is just this: what's the point of it? Like, really, what are you people really trying to say? It's very unsettling to me, man. Okay, do we have another?
There were some people who were saying that Garcia abused his wife, and I looked it up, and in 2021 she did accuse him of domestic violence. There were some bruises on her. The courts issued a temporary restraining order. However, the hearing was the charges were dismissed when she didn't appear for the final hearing.
Okay.
They ended up going to counseling together, and she has since defended her husband, stating that the incident was isolated and does not indicate ongoing abuse. So, I mean, he did do a bad thing.
He did something.
He did something. The question is for visa holders or potential future green card green card holders, it's always been a microscope. And I think actually the next statement, the next statement is from Gerald, and once my screen goes, he said, if we're being realistic, we, regardless of nationality, have committed minor offenses ourselves. I feel like there's a microscope for internationals or for visa holders or green card holders, and I think that's been true way before the Trump administration.
Well,
One of my closest friends is from Africa, and he knows, like, he hasn't gotten a speeding ticket in this country because he's like, I don't want to have anything on my record that will have any issue for them looking at giving me a green card and saying, well, you got a couple speeding tickets, you got a DWI once. Like, he's like, I don't want any of that no issues at all. And that was before Trump, but it definitely seemed. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So what I'm going to say about what Gerald GDC is saying, I feel like there's a microscope for foreigners and visa holders. Well, there should be a microscope. And like, I'm not saying there shouldn't be. There should be. Like, my God, you're like, this is the thing, right? When I go places, when I'm in wherever I am, I'm in Colombia, I'm in Korea, I'm in Europe, I'm wherever I am, anywhere. When I was in Russia, I recognize, hey, I'm not a citizen here. I'm not going to be treated the same way as a citizen. So I'm going to actually be a little bit careful. I got to make sure I'm careful about the things that I do. And I can't just assume I'm going to call the U.S. Embassy and say, hey, I broke the law here. You got to come and bail me out of jail. That's not going to happen. So foreign people who are not citizens of a nation should be under the microscope, and they should know they're under the microscope. The problem is that there are all sorts of ways in which you can break some laws, like a speeding ticket or not paying a fine that maybe you don't know. Maybe I got a parking ticket on my car, and it gets blown off. I see parking tickets downtown all the time on the ground. I'm like, well, someone's going to be in for a surprise when they get pulled over or something happens, and they say, hey, you never paid this parking ticket. And it's, I mean, these kinds of things. So for me, I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying, look, let's be effing realistic here. So yes, people are under the microscope. So yeah. And as a confirmed probationary MS-13 member, he's not confirmed, dude. That's to Jessica. Where is he confirmed? Send me that, because I'm going by what the U.S. Immigration and Custom said in the story, And my God, I don't know.
A lot of people were claiming that there was some evidence of him even back in 2019 when he met. But my response to that is, then why didn't the court say anything about it?
Yeah, why? Exactly. What's the point there? If that's in some evidence, like, what do you mean some evidence? Like, really, this is it? Like, of all the problems that we have here, and this is it. The courts. Here's the thing: the courts have decided. Hey, the courts. This is a court of law. Okay, this is what we run on the court of law. So the police, when the police pick you up and the police do something, and whatever they do, they're doing it on the court of law. If the police just randomly decide they're going to just take you to jail for whatever reason because they want to, that doesn't fly. It's got to be the rule of law, and we act on the basis of the rule of law. The courts, whatever you want to agree with, have said, hey, this guy really should not have been picked up, and you need to bring him back. And we refuse to bring him back. That to me that's the problem. It doesn't matter. In a way, it matters nothing at all what he did for the larger system to be functioning. The courts have said, bring this guy back. So bring him back. All I want is the rule of law. If Trump wants to, if Congress wants to pass new laws, then go ahead and pass new laws. Like, that's fine. If Donald Trump wants to move forward with his whole list of laws, and our legislative branch decides to pass those laws, and great, you did that. You got voted into power and you decide that. But that's not what's going on here. The courts have decided, look, bring this guy home, and we're not doing it. And that to me is a problem. Yeah, that's the problem. Just to operate on the basis of the rule of law.
Jessica just commented, and I saw this today as well, that there are pictures, or there's a picture of him, and you can see on his knuckles that he has tattoos, and the
Yeah.
first knuckle is a marijuana leaf, so that means M, and then the next one indicates S, and then the next one is a cross, so that indicates 1, and then there's a skull, which you can see a 3 in, so therefore his tattoos
Listen.
are saying MS-13, and what I would like to say is, potentially that could be a thing. However, it could also very easily not be. Like I
Listen, man.
I know somebody
also-
who has knuckle tattoos, and if
Yeah.
you wanted to read something into them, you could, although it's not associated at all with anything that you can imagine, because they mean something to that person. Like,
Here, listen. Even look, the point. Here's the point. Immigration investigated this guy, right? They looked at his story. They investigated in El Salvador, and they're like, "Listen, man, he's not involved." Okay, they already decided that. So bring him home. And if we're not bringing him home, that's the problem. We bring him home. The law says bring him home. So that's it. It's pretty simple. And if we want people to just randomly operate on the laws, the things that they want to do and not abide by the laws, not follow the laws of the land, okay? Then we're in for a whole world of hurt as far as I'm concerned, man. Follow the laws. Okay.
yeah, if we bring him back and we give him due process, and we do find out that those tattoos do indicate that he's in MS-13, and we have other indicators, and then we decide we need to deport him or put him in prison for some criminal act that he did in our country, we can do that. But at the current moment, 9-0 decision from the Supreme Court, or ruling from the Supreme Court, is getting ignored. So we aren't getting that opportunity to find out the truth. We're just making mass assumptions based off of a call from New York City, from other people on the internet, potentially bot activity. Like we just don't know what the truth is, and we can't if we don't bring him back and try him in our courts, because that's how we do it.
Well, yeah. Do you have another question though from yesterday?
Yeah.
Here's, by the way, if it's okay to not follow the law, okay, and you think, well, in this case we don't have to follow the law. Well, there's going to be another case where we don't follow the law either, and then you're that's going to be a problem for you, anybody, right? You either follow it or don't. Eventually, it's going to come back and kick you and kick all of us in the rear end somewhere. I have no dog in this fight, really. I don't have a dog in this fight. What I'm saying is, look, Immigration and Naturalization investigated this guy, and they said, yeah, he's fine. He's not involved, and bring him back. That was their conclusion. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, because of that, we're going to bring him back. We're following the rules. So there you go. It's very simple. So you're going to let this go, and then we're going to let a lot of other things go. And then suddenly things start spiraling out of control because everybody's just deciding to do whatever the hell they want to do. And that's not a society that probably you really want to live in, when people are just allowed to do whatever they want. So that's my take on it. It's pretty simple.
No Athletics said, didn't he come in illegally? We talked about at the beginning of this discussion, where there are there are windows of time in which people can, like, our government has given people who have come in illegally to prove themselves in different ways that they could eventually get a green card and a permanent resident. And
here's
all
what
that
happened. Yeah, he was here without documentation, and at some point the law, Congress passed laws to say, like, hey, we're going to give all these X number of people who came under these conditions and are here without documentation, we're going to give them an opportunity to apply for residency status and eventually citizenship. And so they can apply for this card right here. And that's what it is. The law decided that. And so there you go. You don't like it? Well, okay, then look, good for you that you have Donald Trump in power. Donald Trump's not going to allow us to pass one of those laws in the next 4 years. But that law was passed. And then a whole bunch of people who came illegally had the opportunity to apply for residency, just like the grandparents of many people who were probably on the stream. Some people anyway, all sorts of people coming from Europe and Germany and Ireland and Italy and God knows where. So the point is, that's the law. Okay. And so the law said, yeah, you can apply. You illegals, you can apply for this. Okay, there it is. So you can't go back now and say those laws were, you can say they were wrong, but you can't say they were illegal. That was the law at the time, and that was the program that was put in place. So it's like, come on, man, don't go backwards. This is what it is, right? So, all right, man. What's
One of the comments yesterday was from, again, Apache, and he said, the students whose visas were revoked, what are the laws for the offenses in their country of origin? And I don't think we can necessarily answer that, but I did want to reiterate what G said yesterday in class, and this is from G, so I don't know how true it is, but he made the statement that if something is illegal in your country, and it's
That's
also
not
illegal
true,
in the
by the
United
way.
States, it isn't, but potentially, you know, again, if you're doing anything illegal, there's a risk.
Yeah, there is a risk, sure. And then some countries, like, yeah, man, if you're here from Saudi Arabia and you have, or from Korea, and you have a small amount of marijuana in the U.S., like, okay, you can get by here, but man, you do that in Korea, you're going to be in big trouble, right? Or in Singapore, or in China, or in Saudi Arabia. Shoplifting, same thing. Like, yeah, you get caught shoplifting in China, you're going to pay a fine and a slap on the wrist and so on. But you do it a couple times, things are going to spiral very quickly for you. So, so for the most part, the laws here are very similar to the laws everywhere else. That, you know, these are really minor infractions, laws, crimes of moral turpitude. And like, yeah, don't shoplift. And if you do, we're gonna try to get you to not do it again. But if you keep doing it or you steal too much, then you're gonna have a problem. That's kind of true across the board, all over the world. We're not special, really. Most people are. It's very similar. All right, man. What else do you got? State for lovers. What's the state for lovers?
Virginia, man.
Oh, sorry, man. Ah, shit. Should there be more opportunities for non-citizens to reconcile or remedy their wrongdoing, i.e. restitution or community service before revoking visa privileges? No, I don't think we need to have any more. No, that we have an opportunity. You get an opportunity. If you get it, you get it. And that's fine. I don't think there should be any more. Personally, I don't know. I don't know how many more we could have. You get your opportunity. Then you don't necessarily get it if you have committed a violent crime or something. You don't, we're really not people, look, man, especially conservatives here in the United States, we have this idea that we're way too lax and that it's like, we're not way too lax. Most countries are like us. Most countries, you get a second chance. Or you get, the first time you commit an offense, we don't throw you into prison and throw away the key. In most places around the world, that's just not happening. So don't have this idea that the problem with the United States is we're not tough enough on criminals. Like that, by that account, nobody's tough enough on criminals because most countries are like us. That's the thing that drives me nuts anyway. All right, what else do we have? Do we have another one?
Yesterday I looked up some crimes that could lead to deportation, and there are some examples at the bottom. So theft, fraud, assault, domestic violence, animal cruelty, money laundering over $1,000. Sometimes even shoplifting can be used to deny green cards in the future.
Yeah, no, listen, man. This is the thing, right? So these are not kicking students out. Kicking these students out or revoking their visas, it's not really. All of this has happened in the past. All of this has happened. We have had students who have had their visas revoked here at Penn State. It's not like we never have had this. What's different right now, so this has been going on for many, many years for all sorts of crimes. But what has happened is that suddenly Donald Trump came in, and very recently in the past few weeks have decided, hey, we're going to pull up the entire list of people. We're going to look at the names of everybody's here on student visas, and then we're going to look at the courts. And if you've been involved in the courts in any way, if you've done, all of these many, many different things, then we're just going to give you the boot. We're not going to look at your case and be like, well, what exactly did you do? It was a traffic ticket. It was a speeding ticket and they didn't pay it. It's like, okay, that's a lot different than, you got a DUI, right? And you were 3 times over the legal limit. And so what's different right now is that we just have an administration that came in and said, hey, we're going to go get this list and this list. And if you're on both lists, then, we're going to revoke your visa. That's what's different, that we're going to do it with so many people. But we've been revoking visas forever in the United States. This is like, all right. So comments.
Here are some comments that were put after class in the comment section. The first one is from Timothy.
I never forget to corner them. I guessed it in a home or country. Yeah, no, I got that. I hear you. I hear that. I hear that, and I don't forget to either. But I do want to ask a question, right? To Timothy, then I would say, hey, listen. You have a student here who comes. Applies and comes, and they come to a place like Penn State, and they're paying, like $50,000 or $60,000 in tuition, and they're, renting an apartment. So, it's like, let's say $70,000. I don't know, right? A year. And they're a good person, like they're good. They're a good student. They're from a good family. They're hardworking. They come here, and they're doing their job. They're doing everything you want them to do, man. They go to football games, and they, from wherever, Pakistan or Italy or Turkey or Greece or wherever, right? Mexico. And one day, they're at a store, and they just steal a T-shirt, a Penn State T-shirt. I don't know, for whatever reason, they just had a moment of lapse of judgment. They're just like, man, they just took the T-shirt, right? Or they're in the supermarket and they are scanning items in their bag, and they don't scan a big, 2-pound bag of coffee that costs $20. They just don't scan it, and they get caught. Okay. Otherwise, they're a great person. They study hard. They whatever. Everything. They're fine. They're a good kid. They're 19 years old. They just do that in that moment. So Timothy, then I would say, yep, I try to act to the best I can when I'm in another country and when I'm in other people's homes and all that kind of stuff. And yep, I do. And so does this other student, but they had that one lapse of judgment, man. And then you ask yourself, is that enough? Is that enough to just boot them out of the country, man? Like, is that it? The one lapse in judgment. Is that, yep, it's enough. Or I don't know. Let me think about that. That's kind of gray. I'm not sure. If I was the one judging, if I sat down with this young person here, and you see some of these students in my class, they sit up on the table. They're just like trying to figure it out. Is it enough to say like, oh, yeah, I don't care. You shouldn't have done that. That's a 20-pound bag of coffee. Boom, you're gone. Right? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And then you got to say, because you got to say, imagine that you're the king or you're the queen or you're the one in charge of everything. And then you got to say, is that the system that you want to build? And is that the system that you want to stand behind? And is that the best possible system? Right? And you might decide, yeah, people need to know, like, you can't do these things. And then you say like, well, now you're going to get into gray areas, because what if it was an accident? Like how I told the story yesterday, how I almost stole a pound of coffee because I thought I scanned it and I didn't. Or I thought I had another time when I thought I paid a parking ticket and I didn't pay a parking ticket. So then you got to ask yourself, what about the gray area places here, right? And that's all. You might get to the place and be like, yeah, well, whatever. That's fate. Fate decided that you didn't pay the parking ticket, and so we're going to send you back home. Okay, that's fine.
I have a story from Elijah, actually. I don't think he'll mind sharing it. We were talking about a local pizza place in State College when I was up this week, and he was like, yeah, man, this one time I went in, and it was like right before they closed. I had ordered the pizza, went in, there was like no one in the shop because they were all in the back cleaning, and he had said something, and they were like, oh, it's up in the front. And so he saw it in like one of the heating lamps. He had this pizza underneath it, and so he picked it up and left. Didn't think anything of it, and the next day he got a phone call from the State College Police Department saying that they had reported him for stealing the pizza. And just because it was like a crazy moment where he was like, there's no one in it, like, that place is always busy, so for it to be completely empty and no one to be in the front, it just completely crossed his mind that he didn't pay for it. So then he went right back to the pizza place, paid for it, and then they ended up dropping the charges, so nothing happened. But like, that's an instance where he didn't mean to steal the pizza, and as soon as he realized he made a mistake, he fixed it. But like, that could have been bad.
Well, yeah, exactly, man. And green-eyed lady, like U.S. authorities, no, some of these students are getting kicked out for very minor shoplifting, like stealing a bag of coffee. So it's shoplifting. If the place charges you for it, or if they want to press charges, and they're pressing charges, you're going to get charged with shoplifting, especially in a college town like this. We're pretty hardcore about a lot of that stuff. So like underage drinking. I have a current student who has had his visa revoked, and he used somebody's ID to try to buy alcohol his freshman year. That was what happened with him. Freshman year, man. You know, I used people's IDs, but whatever. I did it back in Ohio when I was 18 years old to get into a club that required me to be 20 years old. I had a fake ID, which I guess was illegal. No, I don't guess. It was illegal. But my fake ID said I was 18. Actually, I was 17 at this time. My fake ID said I was 18, but I wanted to get into the club where you had to be 21. So, okay, but that's fine. I was a citizen, a resident of Ohio, and a citizen of the United States. So, you know, they just yelled at me, called my home, and told my aunt, who said she was my mother, what I did. And she said, you send him right home. Oh, he's in big trouble. Of course, I knew I wasn't in big trouble because, you know, whatever. And we just went to a different bar. But the point being, but I wasn't that was in the U.S. And so my student who did that, they're not a citizen of the United States. And at that point in time, they probably weren't thinking like that Donald Trump's going to get elected. Someone might get elected and that's going to come back and haunt me. And so like, okay, it did come back. So the fate of this person is to get the visa revoked and get kicked out of the U.S. That's fate. So for him, it might be the best possible thing. He might go home. Maybe he's going to meet his future wife. 20 years from now, he's going to have 2 kids, and he'll look at his 2 kids and he'll be like, oh, thank God I got kicked out of the United States. I got these 2 beautiful children here that because I got kicked out. And isn't that a good thing? So it's like, yeah, I don't know what fate is, but what we want to ask ourselves always, what I'm always asking is what's the best possible society and system to live in? And maybe that's it. People trip over a crack in the sidewalk and we, yell at them. I don't know. Whatever it is. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Richard commented, there is no inconsistency. One groups are citizens and the other is not.
Okay, see, that's a standard way of thinking of people who hold, generally speaking, a more conservative mindset. Very black and very white. You're a citizen. Here are the laws. You're not a citizen. The laws don't apply to you in the same way, right? Here's the way we enforce the laws for citizens. Okay, here's the way we do it. Here are the potential consequences. We can't kick you out of the United States because this is your land. So it's very clear. And here's the way we enforce it over here. We're going to enforce them in a very different way. It's very black and white. People who tend to be more conservative in their orientation tend to think in more black and white terms. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. I mean, but that's how people think. People who are not so as conservative tend to think in more gray areas. And I tend to think in more gray areas because I just do. Some things I'm very black and white because I have a conservative streak in me. So some things are very black and white, but I can also easily more go to gray areas. And yeah, but that's fair. Yeah, whatever. It's very black and white. Okay. But if that's the world you want to live in, then Richard, there are a lot of black and white things that you're going to you probably live your life and experience all sorts of shades of gray, where I could look at the way you're living your life and the way you're operating and the things that you're doing. And I would say, actually, it's really black and white. So when the police officer picks you up and gives you a ticket for speeding because you were going 66 and a 65, to me, it's black and white. The sign says 65. So if you go over 65, you're speeding, we can give you a ticket. You would never, ever, I'm certain, say, like, shit, man. You know what, Mr. Police Officer, you are right. I'm going 66 and I'm speeding. Yeah, okay. Give me a ticket. I'm sure you would probably argue it and talk about how unfair it is because there are other people going faster than you. There are other people going a lot faster than you. All sorts of things, but it didn't matter. It's black and white. You were going 66 and a 65, so you get the ticket. But the problem is, if you want to live in a black and white world, then what you find is that there's a lot of black and white stuff that we're not really going to like. And so, like, okay, but if we're willing to do that, then that's okay, you know. But oftentimes, what I see in life is that it's a lot easier to see the world as black and white when it's other people. But when it's us, we can come up with all sorts of reasons for the things that we do that would appear to be maybe actions of moral turpitude or something, or whatever it is, all sorts of things that other people wouldn't like, or, you know, whatever the case is, right? It's just a lot easier to see the black and white when it comes to other people. Like the idea that other people's kids who have a drug problem, you know, it's a medical problem, it's a health problem, it's this kind of issue. Or, pardon me, when it's our own kids, you know, it's a drug problem. It's like, yeah, well, it's a medical problem. It's a health issue. It's like, yeah, well, you know, they just like, they struggled and they like, okay, we need to, you know, you gotta see what caused them to get into the drugs in the first place. And like, oh man, but they're really a good kid. And it's like, okay, you know, but when it's the people on the other side of town, it's like, yo, this is fucking, it's crime. It's like, no, it's black and white. You're doing drugs. Okay. Arrest them. Yeah. It's a lot easier. So I think for me, Ian said, by the way, as a conservative, I don't resemble that remark, Sam. Ian said, well, I'm just saying, in generally speaking, when I'm in my more conservative, you know, so I'm split. I mean, half of me is very liberal and half of me is very conservative, and it just sort of goes all over. I mean, I'm both. We all are both. All the time we're both. But the conservative side of me, it's just much more like clear. Like in this world of borders, it's like, you know, people who lean more conservatives, like people, we want borders and we want structures and we want to know that everything's going to be held in place. We want certainty. You know, this is what it is. What is true today is going to be true tomorrow. You know, that's just kind of that's the way it goes. And there's something really nice about that. For me, it is anyway. I don't know.
In the chat, they were having an interesting conversation about international laws. And there was a question brought up about, like, you know, if this is with this lack of due process, if this is against human right that the international community has agreed upon, what could potentially happen? The first thing on the top of my head would be sanctions. I mean, the UN, didn't the International Criminal Court want Putin to turn himself in? Nothing's happened. There was another comment that the UN was in Sacramento, California, and nothing happened. And then later on, Brimstone said foreign relations are basically just forced doctrine. And this is why I wanted to bring it up, because I don't agree, only because of the fact that when we make these agreements with other countries, and one of the reasons why we tend to try and keep them is because we're getting something out of that treaty. Like, we wouldn't make a treaty with a country if we didn't, get something out of it in return.
Well, you got to assume that. So, you always have to assume that, man.
Yeah.
And when like Trump saying that NAFTA and our economic cooperation agreement with Canada and Mexico is the worst possible thing that we've ever had. Well, you were president for 4 years, my friend. You had all sorts of opportunities to break it down and rewrite it. But
he did.
Yeah, he just did now.
Well, no, NAFTA isn't a thing. It hasn't been for a few years, because during his first presidency, he made a new agreement that he's now saying is the worst agreement ever.
Yeah.
Which I can understand. Like, as times change, you want different agreements.
Yeah, no, totally. That's fine. Yeah, it makes sense. But things haven't changed that much. Anyway, but nonetheless, the international stuff, I don't pay attention to international laws, mostly because it's far too complicated for me. Right now, anyway. I used to, but I don't now. So, all right, man. What else do we have? Daniel, remember, if you have a visa, you are a guest and the rules are more strict. Yes. Think about this. You can't visit Canada if you have a DUI. Yeah. No, listen, man. It absolutely is the case. Look, I just applied for my visa for Korea. I get it every 3 years. I don't need a visa for Korea, but I go often enough that it's nice just to give them this piece of paper, and then it's all taken care of. But the question on the visa is, have you ever been convicted of a crime, right? Misdemeanor and then a felony, right? It's like I'm able to say no. And that's been true in every visa I've ever applied for. I don't know what's going to happen if I say yes, right? They're going to put me under the microscope in some way. They may not, probably aren't going to say that I can't go, but they might if it's a felony, for sure, right? Korea's pretty strict, so it's like, yeah, I get that. That's the thing, but the issue is what's the world we want to be in? This is it, man. Yeah. So, all right. Do we have another question?
We have two more.
Prof seems to miss the point that those are not convicted. None is proved guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Someone could be wrongly accused, but only agreed to take a deal because they didn't want to spend time, research, in court, or because, exactly. No, I didn't miss that point. I said that yesterday. It was very clear. It's like there are all sorts of reasons people would take a diversion program. It's kind of like, well, I'm going to need a lawyer. Here, you said that I had marijuana, whatever it is, right? It's like, I'm going to need a lawyer, so I got to pay money for that. Well, I could just have a public defender, but I don't know about that. And okay, so, but I can what the DA is telling me, hey, this is a college town. This is your first time. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to set this up. We're going to put you in this diversion program, and we're going to say, like, you do what we want you to do. You're going to take these classes, and you're going to just make sure that you stay really super squeaky clean for the next 6 months. And then we're going to just erase this from your record, and no one will ever know that it was ever actually on there. It's like, well, I don't want to do that because I'm not guilty, but I'll do it anyway. Yeah, let me just do that. That's easiest, right? I've never agreed that I'm guilty, but I went into this program with the idea. It's like, I'm not going to fight this, man. Yeah. So anyway, that's where we go, right? I didn't.
Here's the
Yes,
last one.
DUI and theft are two highly repeatable offenses. That's the idea. Yeah. Okay. There's one. DUI. Actually, I bet if you do the research on DUIs, you will find that most people who get a DUI, the vast majority never get a second one. Okay. That's going to be my guess right there. And theft, I think theft is probably much more likely to be this kind of thing, especially shoplifting. That's the kind of thing that you do and you get away. There maybe is a rush. I don't, this is a research thing, right? I had to research. If I had to guess though, I'm not an expert on that. I'd have to guess that like minor shoplifting, there's a rush that people get doing that. And so probably maybe be less likely to do it just once. You kind of do that. You get away with it and you're like, okay, there's something about that feels good. That would be my guess. But I don't know that to be true. I'd have to see the research on it. Yeah.
The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration had a report. They found that across various states, the median recidivism rate for DWI convictions were 30%, with a weighed mean of 30%.
Wait, 30 meaning that 30% of the people who get who have a DUI got a previous one.
But are likely to be repeat offenders. It's about 30%.
Yeah, all right.
Which is a high number. It's not half, but it's a high number.
Dude, and the number of DUIs that we hand out is a fraction. It's a small number compared to how many people are actually driving under the influence. I was reading something. Maybe someone could look this up, but they were doing several studies that have been done of, like, Thursday, Friday night or Friday and late at night, Saturday morning, actually, between 1 and 2 in the morning, and Sunday morning between 1 and 2 in the morning, in various roads where they estimate the number of people who are actually driving over the limit. They're DUIs, right? They're driving under the influence, and it's just incredibly high, man. The number of people who do not get picked up, arrested, and charged. Yeah. A lot of people driving drunk, man. I do not like, and after reading that report, I am definitely not into being out on 2-lane roads at early in the morning. Man, that makes me really, really nervous. But
we do have to go here, but Ed asked on the Discord, he said, why should illegal immigrants who do quote-unquote wrong things be given a second chance when there are plenty of good people waiting for their visas or citizenship applications to go through?
I don't necessarily think that they should. So, Ed, I don't necessarily think they should be, and I'm not... yeah, I don't necessarily think they should be, and that's why I'm not making the laws or adjudicating the laws. But that your question is a rhetorical question, but it's one that could be considered, yeah, I mean, that's it. I don't know. Yeah. Why should they be? Yeah. I didn't commit AZ says I didn't commit the crime, but trial would cost me about $50,000. I've already spent $14,000. Yeah, Ian, I got away with 1,000% more crimes than what I got caught for. Well, a lot of us do, man. A lot of us do. A lot of us have driven under the influence. A lot of us have, could have been caught with a small amount of marijuana. A lot of us could all sorts of things that we've done that, we could have been caught for or whatever, and we didn't. And we're just lucky. Speeding. How many speeding tickets could I have gotten in my life? Thousands of speeding tickets I could have gotten in my life. Thousands. I don't drive that fast, but over the course of, almost 50 years of driving, thousands of speeding tickets, man. Yeah, it's all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
I'm looking at my one friend who gets speeding tickets all the time.
Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy. Arnica, by the way, it's nice seeing you on here. I haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're doing well. Okay, do we have any?
I think she said she's going on holiday soon.
Oh, man. Awesome. Yeah. What are your thoughts about the idea that organizations like MAD are less about prevention and more about moral entrepreneurs, fostering a moral panic? Well, okay. I don't know. Okay. I don't know that. But all I know is the one. Look, first off, the beauty of it, I don't know if it's a moral panic. Man, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what to think about. This is the problem, right? With this kind of stuff. I don't know. Again, these researchers saying there's so many more people driving drunk than ever get picked up, right? It's very unsettling. Maybe that's not a moral panic. You know what I mean? Maybe it's not at all. Maybe it's just like we're finally gonna. I don't know. They're pointing attention to something that we probably should point attention to. And like for example, I ride down the roads around here. I go outside of town, and there are all these bars. Even in town, there are bars with parking lots. You know what I mean? Like it's a bar. And it's a parking lot. And the only way to get to or from the bar is to get in a car and drive somewhere. And then what we do is we tell people not to drive drunk. But you go into a bar and you have 2 beers and you're already at the limit. Unless it's like Busch Natural Light or Bud Light or whatever. That's just like water, but you're already at the limit. It's like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, it's a very strange thing in my mind. It's like, wait, I'm struck by this. Like the only way to get to or from this bar is to get in your car and drive. And not everyone's got these designated drivers, man. So it's a very odd thing. So maybe Mothers Against Drunk Drivers is really pointing us towards something that we probably should be looking at. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait, hang on. Gary said that. Yeah. Anyway, but I like your point. Yeah, I know my tricks. Yeah. Well, I'm aware of. Yeah, I'm aware, man. It's like this is it's crazy to me. It's crazy making some stuff. Yeah. Legalize cocktails to go during COVID. Yeah, I mean, it's just like I don't know, man. Life is.
I think gas stations can sell alcoholic slushies in Pennsylvania now too,
Really?
or at least right before COVID, or during my local one does.
Well, I remember in Louisiana, I used to drive down to the gas station, and when I was there visiting my brother, I'd drive down and just pull up and get a beer and drink it in the car and drive away, man. I mean, it's just crazy. 1 beer an hour is the limit. Yeah, well, how many people have 1 beer an hour? And especially if you're buying really good beer, it's going to be much higher in alcohol,
Sam's beers do not take 1 hour to get through his system. They're too high percentage. They're too IPA-ish. I don't know what he drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's alcohol laws used to be really, really behind most other states. Like you used to have to go to a beer distributor to get beer. You had to go to a fine wine and good spirits to get any liquor or wine. And then I would talk to a friend of mine from Ohio, and they're like, every gas station sells liquor and beer. It's like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I don't know, like that's a kind of an odd thing. You know what I mean? We just accept alcohol as this drug. And now, we're dealing with, people being stoned, right? Like it's not easy to assess whether people are stoned. So I did see, I think it was the Dutch, they were doing this thing just recently. They were invited people to come out and get stoned and drive. And the police were going to try to assess, see how well they could assess whether somebody was stoned or not. Which is what police really have to do. Like the only way to figure this out is you got to have a lot of experience with people who are high on with marijuana. And you got to test it out. We have a lot of experience with alcohol, but not a lot of experience with marijuana. So, okay.
Yeah, and it's different with alcohol. It has some clear signs, just like if you're smoking weed, there's going to be some clear signs with your eyes, or maybe how you're speaking, or the ability to keep a conversation, all of those types of things. But some other of the tests that they do, because a person could do a field sobriety test, pass it with flying colors, and be drunk because they're an alcoholic, right? But then they do their blood alcohol test and it still spikes high, or they do a breathalyzer and it's still indicating there's alcohol. One of the troubles with weed is there isn't a test right now that you can determine if someone is currently high or if they've been high in the past couple of weeks. Like drug tests don't determine now; it determines any time in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Now this is really the problem, and this is, it is an issue, man. Let's, people, we've unleashed legalized or decriminalized marijuana, and in Pennsylvania we're really on the edge of passing a decriminalization law, because all the states around us except one have decriminalized, so we're losing all the tax revenue. So this is what they say, right? And so we're going to pass that. But we've we opened up Pandora's box on this stuff, man. I don't know. It's a very life is very strange. Like I'm telling him, I'm glad I don't have to be responsible for making all the decisions, adjudicating things.
That's why you're paid to look at it and analyze it, but not make the laws.
Yeah, no, it's just like here. I don't know, man. I don't know what to do with we as students, and they break the law, and then we deport them. It's like I don't. Damn, man, I don't want to say like what's the law, right? What is the thing that you can do? Like what is it? You know what I mean? Like what is it? Right? What's everything? Every single law? Let's look at every law in the books and decide. Every single one of them. Is that worthy of it? It's on the books somewhere. So therefore, you broke that law, and so we can deport you. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It just strikes me as kind of, here in this town, they bust people for having open containers. So that you can be, people have these big parties, and students, man, you got to stay on the front lawn. Don't step onto the sidewalk with an open container. But, what if you accidentally step on the sidewalk with an open container and they bust you for having an open container?
Someone pushes you accidentally
and then
step on the sidewalk.
And then we deport you because that's it. You're drinking a beer on the lawn of your house and you step on the sidewalk. And so now we're going to deport you for that. And then, people say like, well, but you broke the law, so we're going to deport you. It's like, really? That's it? That's where we've gotten to as a nation, as a people. No, that's why you look at these cases as individual cases. But when you have these moments when you just like swipe down, you merge columns A and B on an Excel spreadsheet, and whichever ones come up, A being you got a visa, and B being they have any kind of charge against you, legal charge against you. And if they show up purple, then those are the ones we're going to deport. Is that it? That's it? Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't want to be responsible for that. And I don't think Deportate Apache podcast. The problem is this, man, if you here at Penn State, if you're an international student, you're going to be paying like 60 or 65 grand. And suddenly you get deported. And if you can't finish your semester, that's a lot of money, man. And not all these kids, some of them are really rich. Some of them are really rich. They're driving around in these $200,000 cars and stuff, right? Some of them are not. And their families go through an immense amount. There's an immense amount of just struggle that people go through just to get here and do that, man. And so I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. And I think my guess is a lot of human beings are big talkers. It's like, yeah, well, whatever, you broke the law. But if you were the one, you had to see this kid who stepped onto the sidewalk and therefore got an open container violation here with their beer can, and you were the one that had to sit down and tell them, we're kicking you out of the country because of that. My guess is you probably wouldn't be such a big talker. Some folks would probably be like, yeah, that kind of sucks, man. When you're looking at someone in the eyes going like, yeah, you had an open container. You shouldn't have stepped on the sidewalk. Yeah, you probably wouldn't do that. Most of us are actually kind of thoughtful in that way. Yeah. Anyway, that's my...
We're gonna end with a dad joke. You ready?
All right. Hey, thanks, JC, by the way. I think you should be encouraged. Yeah, all right. Go ahead, man.
I just bought 50 chicks from the farm. They were going cheap.
Ah, dude. I had a dad joke the other day, actually. Hang on, I might have saved it. I might have saved it for you. I just got a phone call from Penn State Health people. I have an appointment with my skin doctor to have a skin check for cancerous spots. Just there's Sam's PSA. Make sure you get a skin check.
Next month I scheduled a physical because I'm about to turn 30, and I was like, you know what? I should have a full idea of what my health is like going into my 30s. So go to the doctor, people.
All right, here you go. This is for you, Jeff. I only believe in 12.5% of the Bible. I guess that makes me an eighth theist.
Boo.
There you go, man. I saved that one. I took a screenshot of it and saved it just for you.
I appreciate that.
All right, listen, y'all. And Eric Sell, if you're still here, I'm going to go hit some golf balls, man. So I really have to... well, hang on. I got to respond to something. The individual channel. Why do we want these rich brats from nasty places with shit records on human rights at places like Penn State? Well, that's not... I don't know. But why? I'll tell you why. Because let's say I have a student from China here, right? That student from China just got born in China. Man, they didn't ask to be born in China. And they didn't ask to be born in a place where their government, does the kinds of things that their government does, They're just a human being who grew up and they want to make the best of their lives, and they studied hard and they did well and they speak Mandarin and they learned English, and said, I have a dream of going to the US one day. And so I'm going to go study in the US. Well, they didn't do anything. Just like when I travel now, when I was back a few weeks ago when I was in Korea, and people are going, hey, what about this Donald Trump guy? And I'm like, I'm not responsible for Donald Trump, man. Like, if you don't like Trump, that's like, it's not me. Like, I'm just one single molecule in this nation called the United States. So like, my Chinese student isn't responsible for what their government does. I'm not responsible for what my government does. Really, there's nothing I can do about it. So, yeah. It's CR. I went from pro looting, BIM, and open, but dude, I've never been pro looting, and I've never been open borders, CR, ever. I've never been open borders in my life. I've always been like, nah, you gotta like, Eric, the weather is just as nice here as it is where you are. And so I'm going to go hit a few golf balls, man. Anyway, CR, I've never been that ever. I'm not an open borders guy. I'm actually quite the opposite of that. And my job is to understand, get people to understand the complexities of the issues. So whether you loosen immigration controls or you tighten them, it doesn't matter. That's not my job. Isn't decide which one is best. My job is to get people to think about the complexities of it. But me personally, I've never been into wide open borders. I think that you gotta, you can't just, but I understand it. But I've been in communities where people, and I've spoken to many people in my time living in Latin America who were living in dire poverty, man, dire poverty, who are like, yeah, I'm leaving. I'm going to the United States. I don't know where our next meal's coming from, and the meal of my family, I don't know where the next meal's coming from. I have no hope. The only thing I can do is take every last penny that I can put together and get to the border and cross the border illegally and get some kind of job in the United States and send money home. I'm like, okay, what am I going to say to that? You're an asshole. Like that's illegal. You can't do that. I'm not going to do that. Like nobody, we talk to someone in those situations, man, I've been just the houses I've been in, the people, the hunger I've witnessed, like there's so it's not an open border, but it's I understand why you would do that. And I'm not going to condemn you for that. It's like, nor would you, if you sat and talked to people, you would never condemn them, man. Anyway, also caring about rule of law. Yeah, it's like a rule of law, dude. I like living in a world where people by and large follow the rule of law. That's why I love Korea, man. I don't want people eating and food and making noise on the subways in Seoul. I want everything to be ordered. I don't want grade school and high school kids getting on the subway and start pushing each other and knocking each other around and knocking me around. I like them coming on and being very well mannered and knowing that they have to behave in these really intense ways. I love that. It's like, oh my God. So I like living in a place of order. Like I'm a very ordered person. So anyway, yeah. What's my thought about U.S. professors like Jason Stanley moving to Canada? University of Toronto recently reminds me of the Frankfurt School moving to the U.S. in the 30s. Yeah, well, I don't know this Jason Stanley, but I do know that there are a lot of folks who claim like, okay, if Trump gets elected, I'm leaving the United States. They never left, right? And the second time around, if Trump gets elected again, I'm going to leave the United States. And maybe a few of them will. I don't know, but I'm not. But it is kind of like the Frankfurt School, moving to the U.S. in the 30s. Yeah, but I don't think many people are going to leave. I don't know. Maybe they will. I don't know. Damn. I don't really know. It's kind of. Anyway, by the way, CR, I don't even know what you were talking about. If you were, you might have been like uplifting it, because I love when I said the thing about open borders, I actually love bouncing back and forth, man. Like that's a good thing. But I don't personally. I just am not an open borders guy. But I like putting contradictory ideas out there, like, because I'm used to doing it because of my students. I have to speak to students who have one perspective, and then I got to turn around and say something meaningful to them, and then I got to turn around and speak to students with a very different perspective and say something meaningful to them. That's what it means to be objective and not impose our own thoughts on our students. It means challenging everybody. And so what it also means is that people like me get seen as sort of neo-psychopathic or something. I don't know, like schizophrenic, because I'm like all over the place in my thinking, because I have to be, because that's the nature of it. And to the point to which I don't even know what my own thinking is for the most part anymore. I'm really, I don't know. Do we allow guest speakers on Discord? YouTube streams? Yeah. Apache podcast. Actually, we were going to do that the other day, but Jeff wasn't able to join. We do want to do that. So, Jeff, why don't we do it on for sure? Hang on, let me make sure I'm fine Wednesday. Let's do it next week, man. Let's do some guest speakers on. Let's bring people in on Discord. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, so either sometime next week, we'll make an announcement on the Discord that we'll be going live at a certain time, and we'll invite whoever wants to jump in. You'll be able to jump into a room, and then we'll bring you on one at a time. Or if somebody
Yeah.
has something to say, you can message me and be like, "Hey, I love to add my 2 cents about this thing that was just said." We could work something out.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, let's do that. Hey, Eric, no, I know, I think I hold my club too tight. You know what? I've been trying to too tightly, hold it too tightly. Yeah. I think I've been trying to like whip my club around to get more distance on. I've been trying to see what happens if I actually use more strength in my swing, and my ball is less likely to go straight when I do. But I'm just experimenting with a lot of things. But I'm going to go back. I need to loosen my grip more. Yeah. So, yeah. And swing my 3-year-old like a golf club. Yeah. I was with my goddaughter today, so I was swinging her at one point.
We were in our staff meeting this morning, and all of a sudden she popped out of the background. We were like, "How did you teleport there?"
All right, listen, y'all. Thanks, everybody. I hope we successfully got more and more confused. And yeah, if you're more confused at all, then I've done my job. I'm more confused. So yeah, that's what it is, man. Yeah.
All right, everybody.
All right. Thanks. And let's definitely do a Discord thing next week. I think it'll be good. All right, man. Okay.